So hey, how you going? This is Mark from the Six Shop. So I wanted to do a follow-up on the Boba Fett video that I just did. And this time I wanted to do one with spoilers. So the first thing is that when I really look at the season, that the most action-packed episodes were the ones that had the Mandalorian. Maybe for many people that really worked for them. But for me, this turned the Boba Fett or the Book of Boba Fett into the Mandalorian part 2, part 3, or whatever number we want to give it. And that really kind of defeated the purpose of my really getting character development of Boba Fett. So basically, there were a couple episodes that were completely about the Mandalorian. And that would work if I were actually watching the Mandalorian. So some people might say, well, hey, I signed up to see Boba Fett because I saw the Mandalorian. But really, that doesn't make too much sense to me. So really, when I look at the whole show, it doesn't make sense in the context of having the Mandalorian steal the show. And then, not only do you have the Mandalorian steal the show, but then you have the Mandalorian and Grogu. So basically, that's it. So then I'm like, not really thinking about these other characters. So the fact that Baby Yoda, Grogu, decides to give up his path for his play father, that doesn't make sense. And to me, it doesn't make sense in the context of writing, because how are you going to string it out? So for me, if he had gotten more training with Master Luke, that would have made more sense. And that also would have made more sense in terms of what he was able to do in the final episode. The amount of power that he was able to exert with the Force would have made more sense if he had gotten more training with Luke. Now, some people will say, well, it's innate in him and, you know, there's no worries. But logically, it just doesn't make any sense to me. So, yeah, the final episode of the actual series of Boba Fett, yeah, it was great. Lots of action. A lot of people got chopped into bits. Oh, that's fun. But I don't really see like the longevity. I would have appreciated it more if they had strung along the Pikes, if they had left some of the Pikes alive. And, you know, basically my point in everything I'm saying around this is that I'm really hoping for much better writing if they come back with season 2. And I'm really hoping for a season 2 that is not really Mandalorian extra. Because, like, if I want to see The Mandalorian, I just watch The Mandalorian. Now, The Mandalorian is a great series in of itself, but if I'm going to watch Mandalorian, there are a lot of different actors that aren't there. And why aren't they there? And I would also say, I would also say if we're going to do The Mandalorian, then of course we have to address Carl Weathers. We have to address if we're going to have Gina Carano come back. We're going to have to address that. But getting back to the whole premise of dealing with just the Book of Boba Fett, to me, the storylines that really worked for me in the Book of Boba Fett were the storylines when he was living with the Tuskens. What would have really worked for me even more would have been if they had really expounded on Fennec Shand and what's going on with Fennec Shand, origin story, where is she from, her planet family, is she an orphan, where does the rage, she's pretty logical, where did her thinking process. So these are things or question marks that maybe the writers want to address if they do a season 2. And I guess it sounds like I'm really being kind of strident, but it doesn't make sense and it doesn't work to have a series, even if it's a spinoff, that becomes hijacked by the character from the original series. That doesn't work. So that might have really worked for a lot of people, but to me, it didn't work, and logically, it just didn't make too much sense.